Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins team. Welcome back. Here's the thing. We got some stuff to talk about. I just got done my fantasy draft. I don't need to get ahead of myself. But we're not in good shape. It's okay. It's fine. It really is. We had some news, some Bruins related news today. First of all, Korpisalo is your game one starter. And that makes sense. That's written in pencil. There's still a chance that maybe his game goes to hell over the next 3 games, preseason games, and Bussy or DiPietro balls out. Maybe that changes. But they are actively preparing for Korpisalo to be your game one starter. That's fine. He's performed well enough, and Bussy and DiPietro certainly haven't. And Swayman is still unsigned, which we're going to talk about in just a second. The cuts that were made, which we react to things as they come across, and I'm not going to change my amount of passion for stuff because there's going to be news later on. They did say that they are considering bringing guys back up, which does really beg the question of why cut specific ones at all if you're going to do that. Now, of course, Providence's camp starts on Monday, starting today, so getting them more ice time, you're local to them, it's easy just to ship them off there and then bring them back up. Sure, great. It still sends a weird message to me, and I don't agree with it. And that's fine. Again, I do want to point out that I'm not in the room. I'm not at the practices. I don't have that kind of connection. I'm not in the locker room. So there's certainly things that I could be missing, but it is really surprising to me that a couple of these guys were sent down without at least a longer look. But during this presser that they did today, which I haven't even mentioned yet, but that's really what this video is about, during the presser that Mr. Jacobs and Cam Neely and Don Sweeney and Jim Montgomery were all a part of, they mentioned that the evaluation process does not end. It's constant, and they are going to continue with that through the camp. We have 3 more preseason games, and they do expect that some of the people that were sent down are going to play in some of those games. We'll see what happens there. It eases my mind a little bit, but it still, I think, sends the wrong message to a couple guys who I thought were performing pretty damn well during the games. We'll see what happens. No reason to get in a fuss about it. Now, the Boston Bruins fan base is in a fuss about something. And this was twofold today. This was twofold. Because during the presser, Neely, mostly unprompted, said that there were 64 million reasons for Jeremy Swayman, implying that there's 64 million reasons for Jeremy Swayman to be playing. He said along the lines of, I would have 64 million reasons, implying that he was Jeremy Swayman and all that good stuff. Now, the obvious connection there would be an 8-year, $8 million contract was offered to Jeremy Swayman. He did not explicitly say so. This could be any sort of math that works out with 64 million, if you'd like to, that are under 8 years. Fine. He basically put a target on Swayman's camp. I don't think he put a target on Swayman, but on Swayman's camp. And he said, this is the deal that we offered. In some form, shape, whatever you want to call it, the implication was there. I don't think we're reading too much into it. We are assumptioning a little bit. There's assumptions. There's no way not to off of that statement. 64 million reasons. $64 million. Easy connection there. You get it. The fan base rightfully went, that's a great deal. You are a goaltender who has not had a number 1 workload. Working for a franchise. Actually, let's go through this. When you talk about comparables, right? For your first your big contract, right? Comparables for Jeremy Swayman are very difficult to find. The closest one you would find numbers-wise is Saros right before he signed the 4-year, $20 million contract, so $5 million a year, bridge deal with the Nashville Predators. Cool. Hard to call that a real comp because he was in a different situation than Swayman. The Predators, although good at that time, were not defensive-centric, in my opinion. Jeremy Swayman walked into a situation where not only was the franchise built from the back end, where it's structurally, for the past 20 years, it's been defense first. That is how we are built, and he has benefited from that, I believe. In fact, all of our goaltending has over the past 2 decades. Right there, you are in 1/3 of the league, maybe, is built that way, with an organization so focused on that side of the puck. That's an advantage you have over 21 other goaltenders in the league for your numbers, for your focus, all of those things. We can throw that aside. When is the last year, what team could have matched the kind of easy living situation through the regular season that we put our goaltenders through? A tandem that played every other game, that had minimal pressure externally. And the reason I say that is because Jeremy Swayman's pressure was mostly built internally because the Boston Bruins had another option that was performing just as well as he was. They did. And it's much easier. Think of the 2.5 months during the spring of last year that Swayman did not look good. He was struggling, and his numbers weren't great. 2.5 months, right? The reason the fan base didn't tear him apart is because Ullmark was showing out. He was fantastic. And we were still winning enough of Swayman's starts and all of Ullmark's starts that it just didn't matter all that much. Yes, people talked about it, but not to a level of, say, you are the guy getting paid the money, the big money, and you're having a tough stretch through 2 months. Pressure didn't come in that fashion for him. It came internally because external pressure was divided amongst the two goaltenders, and when one was great, the pressure just wasn't as tough on the alternate. You could make the argument, well, wouldn't the pressure ramp up for him to stay at that level? That's internal pressure. That's pressure from himself to meet that level to continue on with his career at the level he wants to be at. It's not from the fan base, though. The fan base is always going to add a certain level of pressure. I just think he's pretty coddled in all consideration. This fan base doesn't coddle people, but good situation to be in. The only other team I could think of that had a tandem quite like that would have been the Islanders. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is off the top of my head, so maybe there's another team you're thinking of. But Varlamov and Sorokin, two brilliant goaltenders, tandem, they could work like that. Now, of course, that ended a much different way for them, but that's not really part of the conversation, where Varlamov took over the starting gig by the end of the year. I just think Swayman's situation has been excellent. It's been a great situation for him. So a comparable for his contract is a little dicier to figure out. But then you have this statement from Cam Neely, 64 million reasons, 8x8. Now, again, we're making assumptions. We don't know all the details. But an 8x8? Why is that not enough? If you want 8 years, and the team's willing to commit a large contract to a goaltender, the most volatile position on the ice, the one that goes through the most roller coaster numbers, but they're willing to commit 8 years at a high cap hit to you, but that's not enough. You being the 5th highest paid goaltender in the league, that's not enough. That's pretty shocking from a fan standpoint. That's surprising. And I'm usually player first here. I'm usually get your money. I don't love my boss. You don't have to love yours. Get what you're worth. 8x8 feels pretty much more than what you're worth given the current circumstances. Now, do I believe he could be a higher level goaltender than that? A goaltender that deserves $10 million? Sure. Absolutely. He's shown that he can play at an extremely high level. Can he do it consistently as a number one? We don't know. And if that's that much of an issue, if that 8x8 is an issue because you know the cap's going up and you want to make sure the structure is correct for you to continue earning top goaltender numbers, a bridge deal is there. I don't think the Bruins were shrinking away from a 3 or 4 year deal at a good cap hit. The bet on yourself kind of deal. I'm just shocked by this. I'm shocked by that statement. That he's been offered, again an assumption, an 8x8, and it wasn't enough. We've heard rumors about the 9.5. 9.5 puts us basically out of cap completely. It makes you question. It makes you question some things. First of all, why do you deserve to be the second highest paid goaltender in the league? I mean, you aren't better than Shesterkin. I don't think you're better than Saros right now. And there's a few other names that you could throw in there. Hellebuck, I don't see why you would consider yourself better than him right now. I mean, that's just, why do you have to be the second highest paid guy? Is your commitment to winning? I know that's like an audacious statement, but I feel weird saying this kind of stuff, but we're gonna squeeze him for an extra $1.5 million when it's all the cap space that's left if they sign. That's tough. It's hard to improve the team in that scenario, especially mid-season if you're having a really good year. That's surprising. But you also jump to the other side here. The front office just throwing that out and throwing the target on Swayman's camp. That's not very professional. I agree. I don't think it's a very professional look for anyone involved, including Swayman. But I don't like this whole conversation about how they started it. Swayman's been on several different podcasts and news networks talking about arbitration last year and being properly respected by the team and getting what he's worth and making sure the goalie market is correct for his other goaltenders, not submarining the market for them and their new deals. You're thinking about everybody else, man. Yourself along with everybody else that's not part of the organization. Now, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think that's your absolute right to do so. I don't dislike you based off of that at all. But we also can't look at Neely like you started it. This has been conversations. The target has been so firmly placed on Sweeney and Neely through all of these comments that Swayman has made, and now we're all going to act like Neely started it? This was little jabs back and forth, going back weeks and weeks and weeks. I just don't know where that narrative comes from. Is this the most audacious one? Absolutely. This is you truly being like, I'm done taking the heat for this shit. And then, beyond that, Louis Gross, or Gross, whatever you want to say. Gross makes sense to me. Who, little history here, is an agent of Jeremy Swayman's, was an agent of Johnny Gaudreau and William Nylander. Well documented that the Gaudreau situation was bad, and Gaudreau had to force his agent to sign a deal with Calgary so he could play hockey when he was happy with the deal in front of him, but Lewis wasn't being, Mr. Gross, wasn't being 100% with the guy and kept trying to squeeze for more, and Gaudreau finally was like, no, get the deal done, I want to play. That deal got done. And then a couple years later, a bunch of years later, Nylander's situation where he holds out, has a shit year by his standards. He holds out, and then finally the deal gets done, not because of Mr. Gross's interactions, but because Dubas finally got on the phone with Nylander himself and was able to make a deal happen. And, well reported in this, that Gross might not have been fully honest with Nylander about what was on the table because he was trying to squeeze Dubas for more. Doesn't sound great, by the way, right? Doesn't sound great. Dubas even thanked Gross for the opportunity to speak with Nylander, man to man and get it done. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and act like agents aren't there for a reason. A lawyer trying to make a deal is going to take advantage of a professional athlete. Not because professional athletes are dumb, but because their area of expertise is athletics, and lawyers' area of expertise is money and the bottom line. One of those has a huge advantage in a negotiation. So, I know that there's a job to do as an agent. It just seems like this particular agent is a skeevy piece of shit. The reason I'm so blatant about that is Neely makes this statement about 64 million reasons. Clearly benefiting from making that statement, although a little embarrassing to himself in the front office, but it gets the attention back on Swayman's camp. And then Mr. Gross puts out a story on Instagram, one that will self-delete, saying that's not true. That offer was never made to us. I beg the question here, because people started crucifying the front office immediately about how the Bruins were lying. Who benefits from this statement? Who is the only party who benefits from saying that's a lie? Because it ain't Jeremy Swayman, because this turns into more of a shit show. And it certainly isn't the front office, who now looks like liars. No, it's the man covering his own ass. The man who maybe wasn't fully honest with his client once again about what was on the table. Look, I'm making assumptions, right? I'm a biased fan. I want the deal to get done. I know how this looks. But if you actually read through the lines, how does anyone other than the agent benefit from this statement going out? Truly, who benefits from this? No one. It makes it look worse for all parties. It's pointing fingers at this point. Cam Neely doesn't benefit at all from putting a random number out there that was dishonest. You want to submarine contract talks immediately? Tell the public you offered something that you didn't offer. That player's never going to sign with you. Ever. And Cam Neely knows that. There's no way in hell he just pulled a number out of his ass and stated it for everyone to see. Just to point a finger at Swayman's camp and pissing off the player in the meantime. That makes zero sense. And as much as I know many of you don't trust this front office, no one's that stupid who has worked in this position that long. But an agent who hasn't been fully honest with his client, who has a history of doing so, sees that come out and immediately goes, oh, no, it never happened. The only one to benefit from this. And it's honestly why even I made a video before this one. I made a video before the fantasy draft that I just had about the situation before Louis Gross put out this statement. And in that video, I stated that the reason Neely said this was likely because he wanted to make sure Swayman knew what the deal on the table was because of his agent's history with this kind of stuff. He was trying to ensure that we were all on the same page. Again, assumptions. I don't know. This is very much my opinion. But you read the clues and the tea leaves, I just don't see how they would ever make a statement like that that was so wholly false and piss off your franchise goaltender in the middle of negotiations. How does that benefit you? It doesn't make any sense. The only other thing I can think of, which again doesn't make sense, is that Don Sweeney, when things weren't going well, told Neely, well, we offered him this, and Neely ran with it. But that doesn't ring true for any previous negotiations. There's no history of that between these two guys. And frankly, again, doesn't make any sense. Because Sweeney has a history of negotiations and how he does business. And it's never been like this. The only person who benefits from a statement like that is the agent, not the client, not the front office, not the franchise team, fans, anyone. This is a bizarre situation. I'm choosing who I'm believing. Everyone has to choose their side. If you don't agree, I totally get it. But the tea leaves truly do read in one direction here, and that's that this scummy piece of shit, who has a history of being a scummy piece of shit, is still being, wait for it, a scummy piece of shit. It's a hard, when somebody has a history, it's not like you're suddenly, oh, maybe he's telling the truth this time. Why would he this time? I trust the front office told the truth. I trust that Jeremy Swayman doesn't know the full truth. Because I have so little trust for his agent because of his agent's history. This sucks for all of us. You know who it really sucks for? Jeremy Swayman. I'm not turning on him. I'm frustrated that the deal's not done. But I'm not turning on the guy. This stinks though. Something ain't right. And someone is not negotiating in good faith. Front office, Swayman, Louis Gross. Someone's wrong here. I think I'm going to assume the one who's wrong is the one who keeps doing this shit. The next couple of days will be important, not only for the individuals involved, but for the franchise as a whole. I've got faith. I'm going to keep faith. Corpusalo is our guy right now. That's how we're going to go forward. So messy. And you know what? For all those teams, all those fans that are dunking on us right now, honestly, let them have it. The Bruins don't have this often. And they've been waiting for this for a long time. Good for them. Go Bees. Go Bees! Of course, we have to give a huge thank you to everyone who's supporting this channel, especially the high-quality inspectors, our top-line tier members, Chris and Erica, Jeff with a G, Tommy Braga, The Bugman, Roland22, GD Viperworks, Len Cruz, Moonlighter TV, Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Coach D, The Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Aaron Adams, Brett Arney, Pincent, and Nick Citrullo. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. You're all studs and studettes. And of course, a huge thank you to the Stallions, our all-star tier members, Joel, Doots42, Heil E. Coyote, Darren Woodbury, Abraxion, John Kirk, Michael DiPaolo, Wolf Warrior, Vinny, Adrian Winter, Tupton D. Tashi, Jacob Pratt, Bruin Smash, DeKingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, and Jeremy. You are all absolute legends. I appreciate you eternally. And as usual, go Bees!